Yeah.
It's 106 miles to Chicago. We got a full tank of gas, half a pack of cigarettes. It's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses. Hit it.
Good morning, Vietnam!
Let's get this show on the road.
Before you say anything, prepare to shut the fuck up.
Screw me. I ripped ass at the ATM.
McLovin! Nice!
Sit back, relax, and enjoy irrelevant platitudes.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire!
Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to episode number 65 of Irrelevant Platitudes. We are hosts Peter Benici and
Lil Dazil,
and Jimmy Walks,
bringing you all things irrelevant commentary on pop culture, dating, and relationships.
What up, guys? How you doing?
Pretty good.
Everyone fucking excited?
Fucking keen for tonight's episode.
You're keen. I've been so keen on this episode. I think we've been trying to organise this for, I'd say, a good 4 months.
Yeah,
but he's on the screen, and I'll do a quick little intro so he can have a quick hi. But Shaun, mate, how are you? Thanks for coming on.
I'm good, my friend. I'm good. I'm excited to be here just on your little intro and the flow of it. It was so good.
So was that actually playing for you?
Yeah, could you actually hear it, or are you just saying that to be nice?
No, your guys' voices and how you all popped in together, and it was just
the
very
vibe.
Slick. It was slick.
Thanks
to everyone listening. We're trying to work out some audio technical things, and
it took a
I
hot
somehow
minute.
Thought that maybe Shaun heard our shit on the way through, and that would have been fantastic.
We've honed our vibe, and it's apparently on point.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Okay.
But yeah, so I guess I'm gonna hit you with the shorter intro that I've done, because I think that anything less doesn't do you any justice. So, ready, guys?
Yeah, go ahead.
Get ready to be blown away this week. We welcome a true legend in the dating world. He's an international force, a transformational coach, and the global director of 3 Second Rule. From Hollywood to Sydney, Shaun Michael has left an inedible mark in the dating and social arts. With 12 years of experience, he has collaborated with the finest pickup artists, seduction specialists, and social dynamic artists. Shaun's journey began as an ordinary guy longing for love, but he took charge and attended his first boot camp in 2007. Today, he is a globally recognized dating coach, an inspiring speaker, and a master trainer shaping the next generation of coaches. Beyond dating, Shaun shines as the star of the hit 2017 Amazon Prime show, Attract Any Woman Anywhere, being hailed as truly one of the best in the world by dating experts. It's our pleasure to introduce the one, the only, Shaun Michael, aka Discovery. There you go, mate.
Welcome, Shaun.
Thank you. I like the pump. You got me excited to hear what I've got to say.
It's the thing. Like, I think it
really just brings people up with this confidence.
Kind of like your accolades and stuff laid out to you. It's hard not to get G'd up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Very true.
Especially when they sound like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially hearing it from Nucci's voice.
In our pre-show, Shaun's like that. The first one's way too long. It's not. It's too much.
This is short, succinct, and to the point.
It's hard. It's like all the things you could say about yourself if you could upload your value to a woman or to a crowd or a group of investors that you'd want them to know, but you'd feel uncomfortable saying yourself. So when somebody else says it for you, which is actually a really interesting component in the dating game, is that your friend or her friends can say a lot more brag spikes about you than you can yourself. And it's one of the things we say to guys is like, a guy who has no choice will try and find the low-hanging fruit in a bar rather than learn the social skills to hold court with a few people and win over her whole friends. Because immediately she sees the social proof, well, my friends like him. But what a guy will normally do, will try and look for the quieter one on the outside and rather take the lower hanging fruit, the one with not so many options for a reason, rather than learn the social dynamics, which is a bit more of a skill set.
And I
We're
think
always looking for the easy way out, but you pay the price in the long run,
Yeah.
And that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to bring you on today. Because obviously, as a guy who struggled with this sort of stuff when he was younger, I think it's really, really important. Obviously, you specialize with guys, but I think obviously we do most of the approaching and things like that in the field. But to understand that, guys like Shaun are out there. So if you do feel like, I should be kind of changing what I'm doing and not being that dude that's going for the low hanging fruit. Because I think with most things in life, you don't want to be kind of the person that's reduced to the scraps.
You don't want to be settling regardless. Go for what you actually would desire.
The mental image I got there was, you know, the contrast between someone operating in the shadows and someone who's able to hold court, or you know, operated within a group with the light shining on them and not be hiding. So.
Exactly.
And you know, and those skills go back, you know, look at the 1800s and, you know, privileged societies, and they would step in, and the man, there'd always be the old lady, and she'd be protecting the younger ones, and she'd be asking, so Harold, you know, what do you think of the climate in South Africa? And he was on point. He had to have his humor on point. He had to be able to demonstrate himself and approval with the little fans. And if he fucked up in that one moment, he would lose value in the whole room, his whole status socially. So men, you know, since the dawn of time have felt this fear of messing up socially in front of other people. So yeah, that's a good point. You know, they'd look to operate in the shadows.
That approach anxiety is real though. That crippled me for fucking years. And it doesn't get any better when you try and go back into it as like a 32-year-old.
Yeah, I'm sure that doesn't
newly
help.
single. It comes right back. Fucking hell. But
a lot of guys say you can smash your approach anxiety. The way I like to see it is that approach anxiety. Imagine meeting the woman of your dreams. The future mother of your children. I like to hope when I meet her, I feel that pang of nervous energy. You know, that's purely natural to feel that nervous energy.
Adrenaline. Yeah,
but a lot of guys it'll cripple them. So some people, very few people actually have massive amounts of, the psychology there, she'll probably know more, but they actually have, a few of them actually have approach anxiety. A lot of them just need to build approach confidence. And there's a big difference between the guy literally afraid to get out of the house and approach a woman, as to the guy who's just feels uncomfortable and hasn't pushed through his comfort zones to learn the art of approach in a sociable way.
100%.
Valid.
Yeah.
So that is a good point to get started off with as well. How do you feel dating is in 2023, say in comparison to when you got started? When did you start teaching actually? Because I know you started in 2007, but actual coaching.
Like 14, 15 years ago?
Yeah. How has the trend looked to you? Because you're pretty much on the forefront of it all the time.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm old enough now to remember in the northeast of England still going, not to the barn, but some little box in the middle of nowhere where they'd organize the local disco and listen to my parents talk about it. I'm still in that era where that actually happened, where the guy would sit around, he's either confident and he'll meet a girl quickly, or you sat on the seats at the dance, and then your buddy will nudge you over, or even the teacher would come up to you and tell you go to approach. And you got to approach, you get rejected, you sit back down, and eventually you find somebody. You're just kind of allocated on this, confidence scale or social status scale. And everybody meets someone and moves on. That doesn't exist anymore.
Thank God.
Yes.
So,
yes.
That is one of the biggest differences where everybody be looking to meet somebody in pair bond. That pair bonding strategy isn't out there. And it's kind of interesting because it's like an all-time low for men and their lack of approach abilities. And that kind of goes back to also, I was asking you guys the questions, like in a lot of workplaces now, they vilify workplace romantics. They don't want those relationships in the workplace. So a lot of guys who are working hard, or maybe even techies, or not so sociable to go out, it's actually very hard for those guys to meet women anymore. I noticed in the news, I think it was last year, and the BBC and they published it from some newspaper, and they literally put a list of all the members of parliament, the government officials who had been sexually naughty. I can't remember what the exact word for it was. Yeah. And it made them look really bad, like they were like total workplace perverts, And on that list was this guy, and he wrote back in, this guy, based on the complaint, just because he went on a date with this woman who he's now married to and has a successful marriage and has children with, and they're totally happy, he's been vilified that he met her through the workplace. And he's on a list in the government sexual promiscuity.
I'm pretty sure the percentage rate of husbands and wives that get married from a workplace, though, is such a high prevalence. Well, like, why would you take that away? I'm assuming it's more of the power dynamic, right, of higher ups and subordinates.
Not even. It's even just part of that pair bonding thing, is that you're spending the majority of your waking hours with this group of, pre-selected people that you work with. And if you're in that environment, like my parents met one another, they were just in the public service, and it was just like, you know, a couple of young people working on the floor, see each other, like each other.
Sorry, I meant more like the bits that are like not so approved of, being the power and subordination. Not that people get married to people, because that's
But that's like an attraction switch as well, right? Like that position of power, the leader of men.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And sometimes those guys,
100%.
Yeah,
that's all they've got. Some of those guys, they're working so hard, and they're techie, or you know, the CEO. That power in the workplace, they're not going to go out socially most of the time. So the chances of them meeting someone, especially if they ban meeting somebody in the workplace, and for the woman to be noticed in the workplace, that could be a good and bad thing. I'm not fighting for either side, but what I'm saying is it's minimizing the choice of men when they're expected more so than ever before to work harder and shine. The pressure with social media, got to be an entrepreneur, you got to have your hustle on. And they're like, so the average hardworking guy who had value for a woman 40, 30, 50 years ago doesn't have the same amount of value. The doctor, you know, those guys who in a safe jobs and elevated in status, well, women now, because of the pressure of other women posting on their social media, they feel, well, I want more. I want to be on the boat. I want to be on Dubai every weekend. And
that's
that guy's like,
oh,
so if I settle down with you, Mr. Doctor, I'm limited to 2 holidays a year. That's my life. So the average hardworking guy just doesn't have the value he used to have. I'm not saying, you know, that's wrong for equality, but it's like everybody wants a little bit more. And for men right now, it's tough because women, unlike 20, 30 years ago, have more choice than any other time in history.
And it's definitely going to change the dynamic as well.
It has, and it continues to change as well, especially with distribution of across like domestic work and domestic labor, and having to also, like with the cost of living, we've also had to be entering the workforce as well. And so who's being the breadwinner, the dynamic of changing that, the power distribution from that, the roles are interchangeable at some states.
Well, that's
as well.
why it's lost its currency.
Yeah,
isn't
absolutely.
it? Because it's like I'm now empowered.
Now I'm also doing these things.
I don't need to hang off a CEO or a doctor or someone to do that for me. I can do
it
my
myself.
own shit. And not only that is, not only do I not need you, but I do better off without you. Is almost
in some cases.
So perhaps like on an infield boot camp, have you seen maybe the whereas, you know, you'd have the odd kind of one or two in every couple of groups that would be a bit more like aggressive towards the guys. Is that on the rise as well? So with the gender shift or the gender norm shift, are guys kind of getting muscled out of sets more than they previously used to because things are starting to change?
I don't see it so much on mine. There's always that one occasion woman will speak to the hand, you know, it's like, it's very abrasive.
That's always going to happen. Yeah.
But I also said to the guy, you need to own that because you wouldn't have got that if you hadn't have telegraphed so much interest. And I understand why women do that. You know, one of the factors is that she's learned from her, you know, if she's just a little bit hot on the scale, you know, she's dressed beautifully and she's presentable, she's going to get approached, or she's going to get a lot of signals. So if, for instance, a low value guy, which she can't see his value. No, a guy looks at a woman objectively, rightly or wrongly, his evolutionary wiring is going to prompt him to feel a level of sexual desire based on her looks alone. Women don't feel that same intensity of sexual desire based on a man's looks. They need to know more about him. But at the same time, she can't see his value. She can't see if he's successful, hardworking. He's a multimillionaire. He's driven. He would make a great father. She's the very guy that she's talking about to her friends, but she can't see that on the surface. But in the moment, let's say he is the CEO. He's got everything she wants. But in the moment, because he doesn't go out very often, when he approaches, he acts a little bit nervous. He's speaking a bit too fast, or he gets a little bit too close when he approaches because he's not used to it. You know, he's trying to interject himself within the group. And in that moment, she like, this could be that next needy guy where if we're just nice to him and sociable, he's going to linger. Men are predisposed to misinterpreting female signals. So he thinks, I've got a bit of a chance here. And now they're stuck with this guy asking the same boring questions that she's been asked thousands of times before. Now they've got to bounce to the bathroom just to disappear and go get rid of the guy. So a lot of women, especially if they have choice, they have got a little bit more abrasive, and the more choice they get to get rid of the guy or just not give the signals in the first place. So, you know, it's a hard one on both sides.
Yeah.
So not hard.
Yeah, and that's the problem, right? But so with that, that they are being a little bit more brazen. Are you having to kind of psych guys up for it, or is it more speaking to them and being like, okay, so you need to look at your approach and like the things you might be telegraphing? Is that probably a better way for people to be looking at it?
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, I always say, look, you know, there's a concept, we call it. It's great for advertising. No fail opening. And, you know, there's a concept in the dating game called direct or indirect. Direct is
indirect, boy. That was my
the men will say, just go and approach and tell her you like her. Well, first of all, my issue with the direct initially is when you say go approach her. If you're in a social environment, approaching her means one, she's not on her own. If she's on her own, she's either number one, waiting for the boyfriend to come back, because there were girls that have gone to the bathroom together, or number two, she's a prostitute. She's not on her own for, you know, for no reason. So you're in Vegas. I'm talking, we do a lot of boot camps in Vegas. So what I say to them is you have to engage everyone in the group, but, that's different. And letting a girl, you know, you like her just based on her beauty and her sexuality is basically you're telegraphing, saying, look, I'm not accustomed to you. I'm reacting to you. Because if you had choice, a lot of choice, you wouldn't be reacting and over sexual when you meet somebody the very first few moments if you had choice. So that's a direct. Now, it can work if you have a lot of status and value and guys leverage that. But let's say a guy who doesn't have much impact value is trying to tell girls he likes them straight off the bat. Hey, I like you, you know, and like, oh, you look beautiful. Great. It validates her beauty, but it does nothing for his attraction. Yeah. So when we teach them, we'll teach them what we call the indirect method. That's not to say sneaking around, you know, sneaking around the houses here.
Not at all.
No, that's also illegal.
The other one is to make sure don't impose yourself within their group. You're walking by to the bathroom in a social bar, you make a comment, you're kind of walking by over the shoulder. That gets misinterpreted. No, I'm not suggesting you walk around like a crab in a bar, you know, over the right shoulder.
If it works.
But as you're walking by, you throw a couple of comments. But the point is, you don't try to impose yourself on the group. Because if it goes wrong, back to the 1800s, if it goes wrong in that moment and they reject you because you overtly showed a lot of interest, the whole room see that.
Yep, you're that guy at the bar.
So there's a difference between the pickup artist and the social artist. The pickup is just trying to do numbers, go to the next bar, find one low-hanging fruit he can get laid with. She won't stick around the next day after she sees his shitty apartment, and he has to start again.
Yep.
Whereas the social artist is putting a bit more effort into learning those old social graces of winning over the group, not imposing themselves straight away, so that he can upload his value to the room. It's like playing chess versus checkers, I suppose.
Yeah, and the way I used to explain it too, because Amy would ask questions and stuff, is I would say it's always about like managing other people's comfort too.
Yeah.
Like if I can sense that, you know, someone's getting a bit more upset or someone's a bit kind of dejected because I haven't really spoken to them.
You can give a bit more attention out that way towards them.
It's just about, being really aware and then honestly trying to make sure everyone has a good time.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you don't want to rock up and make, you know,
you're still going to have a good time regardless if you are all getting along as well.
Yeah. And
it
makes things flow better. It shows that you're much more sociable. It shows that you're not this weird piece of shit that goes, you know what I mean?
And also your girlfriends are going to be the ones that are telling you whether to break up with the person or not. So you kind of want to get in.
But do you guys still do that thing where in court, of the people who were there, the person you'd kind of last give that special attention to would be
the one that you're actually after?
I'd
say yes.
Look, that's how that was the kind of general soft pitch back in the day. I guess as I did it more and more, I would kind of feel it out. If it felt like that was required, then sure. But I'm sure Shaun has a much better take on it.
It's like those dating rules. They were written in black and white, but people treat them like black and white. So yes, the concept is if she's used to a lot of attention because she's let's say she's the super hot one in the group, and most guys' eyes will linger. But in actual fact, what a lot of guys do, they will react to the first girl who's responding to them and giving them a bit of attention, and they'll just talk to her. Where what you need to do is share that love, share the energy, share the social vibe, the jokes, the giggles, share it with everyone. Just slightly less so that they appreciate, oh, this guy's social. He doesn't want anything. And a lot of people will say, well, aren't you really hiding what you want? Well, if you're a guy of choice and you meet a lot of people, then hopefully you're not reacting just because they're beautiful. You don't know if she has value for you just based on her beauty.
And a lot of what gets missed too is when guys start is they're starting with none of this intelligence. So you've almost, they're coming into it where they're doing it consciously because they don't have that unconscious competence yet. It's all about building.
They don't know what they don't know yet.
Yeah. So, you've got to have the successes and the positive feedback before you start being like, oh, this is how I'm supposed to do this stuff.
Yeah.
This is why I was having all these problems. This is why I'd approach a group of girls and it'd be weird.
Social awareness. It's important. Yeah.
And we always say right at the beginning, we show a slide of a chicken claw on a woman's legs, and it's really creepy. And it's all about don't be that guy. And we always say if you could remove your bad habits, especially things like talking too fast, showing your nervous energy, showing too much interest. If you could remove most guys' bad habits, they would do all right on their own as long as they got out of the house and approached more. And that's the thing is most men are not doing exactly that. They're not approaching anymore. They're trying to go on Tinder. And it's very hard because there's only a few % actually leveraging Tinder. And you've got to be great with your photos. You've got to be great with your lines and the follow-up. So most men aren't doing that.
Yeah.
But going back to what was said earlier on right at the beginning, and that was, people are settling. And I don't think, the whole settling concept is great, because if you settle, for me, it's like you're going to take it out on each other. If she didn't get the guy who's as motivated and as wealthy as she wants and hasn't got the motivation and drive, she's always going to be on his case. And if he didn't get the beauty that he wants, he's going to be nitpicking, get your ass to the gym. It's just going to be this abrasive, under the radar uncomfortabilities that chips away at each other over the years.
Or someone's going to cheat to get what they deserve.
Miserability.
Yeah.
Or someone cheats to get what they feel like they deserve. They're like, why did I settle for this person? I could get so much better. And they go out one night and do it. And
but people also settle because they don't know their worth, and they also don't believe that they can attain that kind of stuff as well. Like a big part of it is I've made the attempt, or one attempt, or a version of an attempt rather than multiple or across different people.
That's all it is. And all those shadow operators and all those people who are trying to pick one off and go to the next bar to find the next person are really just doing that to fill their own hole in their own self-esteem.
Or their vaginas.
Which is the reason.
I'm so sorry. You just said hole. I just couldn't.
Or their bum hole. Let's be inclusive about it. It could be any hole.
That's true.
Whatever
Any
hole
hole.
they
Any
want to
hole's a
fill.
It have to be a specific hole.
There's a hole that they
We're not
want to
judging the holes, okay?
Don't be whole discriminatory, Lil.
But you know what I'm saying is that they're going
whole
out to
equality.
Yeah. Whereas if they had that, if they didn't have that hole to be filled in their self-esteem, then they would probably have the confidence to go and be that social person who would actually attract people. So it's almost like a catch-22.
Yeah, it's a key factor is do you have choice? If you have choice, you will operate very differently. You'll telegraph less needy signals. You will just operate so much differently. You will not be on the date and any question he or she asks, trying to fill the void and impress them based on what they're saying. You're like, you know what? I'm just not really into that. I had a girl the other day. I love my mountains. And she's like, I'm a gymmer. Hell of the gym. I'm an ex-army physical training instructor. But then as it transpired, she lives in the gym like 2 to 3 hours every night.
Jesus Christ.
3-4 times in Dubai. Not my kind of girl. I'm not saying it's wrong, but it's not my preference.
But
a normal guy, if he didn't have choice and he didn't go on multiple dates, then he's gonna, you know what, I could go to Dubai more. You know what, maybe I should go to the gym. The other
making
person,
almost concessions
if they don't have
for them.
choice, they'll adapt themselves and they're miserable.
I think that's a really important comment to make around adapting to other people's needs, because that's also what breeds codependency, right? It's this belief with settling as well of I can't find better, I can't do better. So I'm going to make the accommodations to you to make myself feel vilified in making the decision as if it's my own choice that I have less choice.
Yes.
Yeah, right?
Yes.
That's a good observation.
Also, my take home is I really want to fucking go to Dubai. It sounds like it's a shit. Like it's all happening in Dubai.
But we did touch on this just before.
I'm getting more red. I think it's your fault. I've never actually had the red wine with these hot lights on me, and I could feel my face glowing by the second. I'm not just like it's like a tanning agent building up on inside.
I'll fix it in post for you, mate. You're still as gorgeous as you were now as when you started.
You should do a little before and after the beginning of the interview and see like bright studio lights and wine, what color I am by the end of it.
I was going to say. But so you did mention how the dating apps have changed these things. So how have you kind of suggested to guys to leverage technology now? Because it's a very real part. You've got Instagram, you've got Facebook. into dating these days? Because it's almost like if you're not on Instagram or anything like that, like you're almost socially excluding yourself.
It's a lot of, actually, that's a really good point, Peter, because a lot of guys will say, I don't do Instagram, and that's fine. That's fine. But you meet a girl, it's like the exchange of a number is like,
it's changed,
it's like
right? It's not a thing anymore.
It's like, so many phones, you're like, who is this? Who is this? It's like the reality of you answering a number you didn't have the name with.
So
and
true.
Yeah. It's the new thing now. The number is what calling used to be.
And it's a great way to not have some sort of social media. It's like going to a job, 10, 20 years ago now and not having a CV.
It's like, red flag.
Where's your social proof? Or there's no recommendations on LinkedIn. So it does help screen. It's not the best thing.
No, it's
but if you're a guy and you say, I don't do Instagram, that's fine. She can tolerate that. What do you do? I don't do anything. It's like, oh, there's this kind of
like,
weird
why is the next question.
Vibe, yeah.
And
that is a danger because a lot of guys, I always say to them, look, and I make them on the boot camp. We get them some photos. We go and find some photos, maybe edit them, take them out, get some photos. Even if you just put 9 up and just say this, and just even if it's all the shitty old photos, delete the lot and then create, say, new account. And then at least she can go and see a varied response because they're not really looking, especially women to men, at how you look. She's already seen you. She wants to know, what does your lifestyle look like? Are you varied? Are you got natural, healthy friends, outdoor pursuits, other things going on that give her an inkling to what would my life look like if I pair bond with Peter? If I got into bed with Peter, what would my life look like in the future?
And it's 100% a good observation.
It's definitely a necessity to have a social media. But most people are relying too heavily on it. And I try and discourage them from using Tinder much, but they're going to use it irrespective. And a lot of people, if they're traveling, there's nothing wrong with jumping on Tinder and saying, open some friendships, I'm traveling, etc. But the chances are for a guy, if he's just an average guy and he hasn't learned to work the photos and the angles and the whole message threading, getting them off Tinder, go and talk to them on Tinder, get them on WhatsApp so she treats you differently, leave voice notes, not message. If he hasn't figured all that out, his choice pool is going to be very low. And that's back to this settling. And then the more he uses that, he's not got much choice. So the first woman who shows a bit of attention to him, even if she's not really what he wants, he's going to settle. When really what he should be doing is out meeting and approaching and learning how to engage socially. But that takes a lot more skill than swiping left or right. So people are getting lazy.
Yeah, technology's definitely done that. I have to agree.
And do you think with the laziness, a lot of that comes from that overarching, the initial fear of rejection and then that persistent almost grinding, if you haven't learned how to deal with these things properly, that ever mounting I'm not good enough sort of feeling that creeps up to a guy after you've been on.
Well, it will. It's like they suggest that a woman between the ages of 21 and 25, if she's has a level of attractiveness that other people say she's an attractive woman universally,
objectively attractive.
She's going to get between 500 to 1,000 approaches a year.
I definitely do not get that many fucking approaches.
That'd be stupid.
I'm not
I
saying
never said I wasn't not gorgeous.
You.
I was saying I don't have that many approaches, all right?
Yeah. But the approaches may come in terms of little throws of indicators of interest, the throwing signals,
I don't leave the house that much.
etc.
Spending weekends at home with your cats, so the cats would approach you that many times.
The cats are going to kill
you. The cats approach me so much.
So I guess
also a simp, so that doesn't.
But
did you say it was
here's
the
key,
1,000?
Where I was going, that is the guy. If the average guy will approach twice a year.
Fuck, really?
Wow.
Yeah.
If he approaches, like let's say I got a guy who goes out your friends and he goes approach and it didn't go comfortable, maybe he'll try again a few months later on his own. And you know what? He'll go, fuck this. This is just not for me. This is just too weird. It's uncomfortable. I didn't like that rejection. I'm a successful manager in my business. I'm doing all right. And then I was made to feel like shit. Not because she made him feel like shit. That's his own emotions. He's got to own that.
Yeah.
But he doesn't know where else to go. So then he'll go back to, just go swipe left, swipe right. It's less
the easy option,
less sensitive, less emotional. So yeah, it's
in Europe and
he's just
places.
not getting the practice, and that's the key. One of the biggest answers is get out the fucking house.
100%.
Get out the house. Have a few things to say.
Put your cats away.
Can I ask a question though? So when you said like the average man, what constitutes the average man when you're thinking about that? And maybe I'm very blessed to be surrounded by such beautiful men in my life, but a lot of the men in my life, definitely I've seen approach a lot more frequently, and I see them also have a little bit.
That's
why I was asking what constitutes as the average
and also,
man.
there's a clue as well. They're with you.
It's fields of eligibles, right?
Yeah. Here's the thing: is if you've got a group of guys, five guys going out on their own, that's a penis parade. That's a cock fest. Yeah.
Oh, I'm a great buffer as well.
And I'm
a fantastic buffer. I'm safe.
So if I put Lil in this penis parade,
oh my God, a dream.
Immediately now that is a sociable group. Just by having one woman in that social dynamic, that means from that moment on, if a man speaks to other women in adjacent groups, women are less harsh. Because women don't like to be judged by other women. So just having that guys want to go out on their own. No, learn how to make girlfriends that you don't want to always fuck all the time. Have friends that you want to go out and make sure they're having a good time. And by having those women in the group, now that when you speak to other women, they'll not be as harsh. They'll give you that extra 30 seconds of talk time rather than dismissing you, because no woman wants to be seen as being bitchy by another woman. They always give the guy a little bit more time just because they have women in the group. And that's a real powerful social dynamic. But that doesn't happen with the pickup guys who are just running around trying to get laid, and then they don't see those girls because there was no emotional connection. There was no real bond. The girl feels a bit of buyer's remorse, doesn't want to see the guy the next day, and he's got to start all over again.
And we see that with boy groups doing that, right? Like our guy mates, when they're all together, by comparison, like, they get a hookup or anything, but it might not be. It's a different vibe, isn't it? It totally is. And I love to be wing woman. It's my favorite fucking thing.
Wing woman.
Well, Nucci's got a partner, so
he knows that.
I mean, I'll help him get laid if he needs to. Amy, you know what to do.
She just coaches it. Come on, it's time. It's time, Amy.
But yeah, no, that's like my favorite thing. And I have to say, the group of, just as a side note, my guy friends are like the safest humans ever. So it is so nice to know that you can go out, not be hit on by your guy mates, and also be able to be safe with them generally. And know that they will be safe with women as well and respectful to them. So you want to hype them up even more so.
And you get to meet the cool dudes we hang out with.
There are those. There is this concept, however, called the orbiter. There is a concept called the orbiter, and that's the guy who is in the friend zone within the group, and the girls. He's like the gay best friend or a chihuahua. You know, he's there. He'll come and pay your fans, come and help you move into the new home, and he's the guy that really liked you. But he just couldn't trigger the sexual tension beyond the attraction and the connection. So he ends up in the friend zone, and he'll linger around for years. And a lot of girls will say, no, he's just a good friend. I'll say, right, let's test that. Send him a message and just say, we've known each other for a while, and I've probably never appreciated the way I showed you. Like, would you be open to dating? And I guarantee,
10 times out of 10, my friend.
At least half of them say yes.
Yeah, you'll flush him out with that.
My soft way of doing that, because that's actually quite a good way of doing it. I would tell, because I had to explain this to Amy, the concept of the orbiter and stuff, and I was like, well, they're a lot more than an orbiter. Is when they get a girlfriend, they don't disappear. They value your friendship.
Yeah.
Because obviously a lot of girls will be like, I don't like that, you're this close with this person or whatever.
And they'll do the distancing out of respect for their partner.
Look, like both yourself and Elle are very good friends of mine. And I have this conversation with all my partners. I said, look, Elle and Lil have been here before you, and they're going to be here, unfortunately, if this goes wrong, after you.
Yeah.
And I value them, and it's not going to change because you feel a little bit uncomfortable. You just need to get to know them and understand our dynamic.
Yeah.
You'll be fine with it.
And same with my guy, mate.
But his way was much faster and much more eloquent.
No, but I like hearing that on the flip side as well, because it's nice to receive that and hear that as, firstly, funny up, best friend girls, but also totally do resonate with that as well. And same with my guy friends. I've not really been in any partnerships other than one that was really toxic, where I was actually friends with an ex, and genuinely friends with an ex, not I want to fuck him anymore, things like that. And my partner at the time said, no, you need to cut him off. And that was a really hard thing. And so I think there's a lot of value in place when you do consider like people that are orbiters by comparison to people who are just genuinely good friends who stick it out with you around too.
And that's a large portion of it too. Being a well-adjusted social dude is being able to tell if a dude is an orbiter or not.
Yeah. But sometimes people also don't pick that up. Sometimes guys can be sneaky. Like, you guys know guys better than us. Like, I know a lot of women who are fucking sneaky that would absolutely take a chance where they could. Yeah. So I think that there's a reason to be protective, but you need to trust in the relationship itself at the same time.
And rather than just having, you've got to get rid of this guy or not get rid of this guy friend, I always say to the guys, look,
keep the threat close.
It's just like having her best friends. If she likes you, she will at some point want you to meet her friends. She will want that public endorsement from her friends that he's a cool guy. Yeah, that's what you're looking for. And same with the gay best friend, the guy friend, that orbiter. You want to make sure, meet the guy. You'll know if there's a connect there, and you've got to win him over just as much, but you'll also get the signals of, okay, he's still interested. Then you'll know, and you can make that decision. Okay, it's a make or break. You get rid of this guy or not.
Yeah.
But, most guys will avoid, I don't want to meet that guy. You still, it's like, treat them like a good best friend. You need to win them over at some point.
Exactly. You got to lean into that discomfort, which is a big thing.
I remember having a girl say that to me. We'd been in this relationship and her best friend was a male and he'd been in Europe for the, 9 months or something when we'd established our relationship.
Yeah.
She's like, Matt's coming back. You're going to meet Matt and he's my best friend and you're probably going to be threatened. Every other partner I've ever had has been really threatened by how close we are as friends. And we went to this party and me and Matt hit it off. And I was not threatened at all. I was like, yeah, cool. He's a dude. Awesome. That's better than a girl. Not better than a girl, but it's I get that. I understand that. I'll be able to vibe with him. We met him and he was an absolute sick cunt. Yeah. To use an Australianism there.
So,
here's the thing is it exists, that uncomfortability exists for a reason, and evolutionary, whether we compartmentalize and say, hey, he's just a friend, just a friend, just a friend. Men will always feel sexual tension to beauty. It's in our DNA wiring. We can't escape that. No matter how civilized we are, evolution will tweak itself tiny percentages over thousands of years, and that's not changing.
No, Darwin was very spot on with the way
channel it, right?
Yeah, and even though we say, well, we're not cavemen, I always ask if I'm at a big convention, there's girls and guys, I say to the women, I'll say, look, Lil, imagine being attracted to a man smaller and weaker than you. It has that uncomfortable pang of emotion. They never said to Peter, James, I'll say, imagine being attracted to a woman bigger and stronger than you.
I think
it's like
snooze.
It just has that. See, we're just wired differently to select for different criteria.
And you want to have it's by evolution, right?
The data available is amazing. Say again, Lil. Sorry.
So I was going to say, because I'm a sucker for evolutionary theory. So exactly what you just said. So in terms of, looking for mates and pair bonding, you want someone who is going to be able to produce successfully with you, for one. For two, to create the best of the best offspring. You want someone who is going to be able to have beauty and good looks, that they're going to have humor to get them through certain situations, that they're going to have resilience, that they're going to have strength. So it makes sense why we do initially go after these traits and why we might be threatened by other certain traits. So it makes sense with what you're saying as well. We don't necessarily go after those things, and that's where that settling goes in as well. But we also need to be aware of where we are in our fields of eligibles, what things we actually can strive for. Because yes, we want to, and I'm, as much as I'd love to tell every single woman, man, they, them individual that they can shoot for the top and get the best of the best, sometimes the fields of eligibles, their best might be a 6 comparatively when they're a 3. As opposed to someone who may be considered an 8 on that subjective scale, which is all subjective. But
and that subjectivity is a problem, especially when you add social media and filters
big time.
and likes.
Then you've got, and it's all
they
fake.
Stroke the ego and like, hey, I'm getting this from these guys. I want that.
Yeah,
and
it's a complete skew now.
Absolutely, perception's reality, and it all whoops.
Are you seeing that now, where there's guys that are coming to you saying, hey, I like this girl or whatever, and then maybe you might be seeing them out in public and things like that, and it's like a completely different person. That for down in, I guess, Australia, I'd say.
I go on dates, and if I've traveled, I have a little strategy. If I'm traveling, and like I did 20 countries during lockdown over 2 years. I just literally went on the road. I snuck out of the country. I was like me and 3 guys, the only guys on the ferry apart from the freight drivers, cool. And so I would, before I get somewhere, I'd put myself on Tinder, and I'd just say, look, I'm just interested in having good relationships and friends and going out for some meals in some nice places. And it was always nice because you'd get a woman's perspective of where the cool areas are. And, you've got inbuilt friendships of going out with that girl and her friends. And it was great to meet people. But the challenge of not having any strategies when you're traveling or in dating and just turning up. A lot of guys will travel and go somewhere and just be lonely.
Mm-hmm.
What would be your...
And that is the danger. Somebody gets promoted and you can't meet somebody in the workplace and you work a lot of hours. I had a guy from Houston, Texas. He was one of these network marketers. He was in the Hall of Fame. I think he was the first guy to ever do $5 million of sales in a month. And on stage, I remember inviting me to the Staples Center, Houston, Texas, 10,000 people. On stage, he was the daddy. He was the daddy. Nice, small, neat guy, very well dressed, very inspirational. I remember we went back to his suite afterwards for like a leaders meeting, and there were girls everywhere, half naked, taking photos of his door and standing there with a hand on. It was just crazy.
How many were talking to him,
that's
though?
the level of choice he had because he was a leader, success, and resources, the evolutionary wiring firing there. Yep. But then we went into town afterwards. He was one of the guys that inspired me to get the BMW i8 because he had the i8 and when it was brand new and he pulled up outside and they told me he couldn't park there and he was like, oh, can't park my car and can't look cool. We went into the bar. He tried to speak to a couple of girls and on one of them he got the hand. He was just too needy in his approach and it was so uncomfortable. And there he is with so much choice in one environment. But you see, people talk about just be confident. Women will tell men, just be confident. Confidence isn't always transient.
Yeah,
you could be a black belt CEO, but you don't have social confidence. The great thing is it is a skill. It can be learned. But yeah, it was just uncomfortable to see him. And because of those few rejections, literally the next couple of weeks, he got into a relationship. He told me he didn't really like this girl. She wasn't hot enough. He wanted to find better. But just because of that sting of those reactions on one night, he got into a relationship. I mean, he's out of it now, but it was like 2 years making each other miserable
almost on the wall.
Yeah, that
because of the lack of
ideal
choice.
Do you think that, like, for me, to hear that, like, I've had people that are getting married, or they're married to that person now, saying to me that, oh, she's not the most, beautiful person in the world, but mentally, like, you say what you can for niceties, but I'm like, internally, I'm like, why wouldn't she be the most beautiful woman in the room to you?
Yeah.
How could you objectively say that to someone off the record?
Yeah. Something's gone wrong there.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of really want, and that's one of the main reasons why I wanted Shaun here is to show that, like, conversations like that and stuff with people that are fucking spending the rest of their life with this person, and it's so not,
and they'll
justify
it. They'll justify it.
They always want people want to feel less guilty.
There's nothing wrong with settling for somebody who's not as visually beautiful for you in the ways you'd prefer.
If they're a perfect match,
they better shine in so many other areas that they shine in so many other ways that you can't see anything else but beauty in them, even if they're not the most beautiful person in the world.
That's what I go after in people. It's why I don't have a type physically, because I go after characteristics.
Well, and that's the thing.
You're a woman,
like, no, as a predominant
so
thing.
A woman naturally will look for other characteristics more so, whereas men
are very
to
visually,
feel that sexual attraction
and youth and all of that kind of stuff, evolutionary.
And when men see sexual attraction, like you say, the biological wiring makes them think like this is all that, and then they're just looking for a window. Some men, and they get that window, and they're like, "Sweet, I'm home and host," and that's the
But that's why it's so important to have the skill set to be able to understand that. To know what you want for one,
to realize you've got a fucking choice,
and then also to know when you've found what you want. That's one of the biggest things for me. Was being able to understand when I found someone that was everything for me.
How do you
was that choice?
So for you, Nucci, but also for you, Shaun, and also for you, James. Like you're just not in a partnership, so that's why it was not going to be extended. But like in the sense of, how would you identify what you found? What does that look like? How do you know? What do you? Because you said people need to kind of know what they need to look for.
Yeah.
What does that even look like as a process?
For me, it was a simple exercise of outlining 3 traits in me that
I know those traits.
That I found in women that I found myself gravitating to, and I had to sit down and I had to be like, okay, what is it that draws me to these types of women?
It's the light up attitude, the very happy go lucky, like life is good energy.
And the big thing is, because I'm a bit of a brooder, I do need that really upbeat, happy energy. I need fantastic eyes. That was a non-negotiable.
Amy does have
for me.
fantastic eyes.
Yeah. And honestly, it was just their general outlook on life,
and kindness,
and
good outlook.
Notice that, right? Like Amy has. She's all of
constantly
those
always.
If you look at every girl I've ever dated, they always have those things, and that's the thing. Once you see that, and without things like this, I wouldn't have known that.
Yeah,
I would have fucking.
And obviously, to a degree as well, you're a sociable creature.
Yes.
And that's the challenge. A lot of guys are not, The one thing we make them do in a boot camp is write down those qualities. What would, not just the beauty, let's talk about the visual aspects, I'm a tit and an ass or whatever you're into.
I love a singular titty.
What brings it alive? What would bring the relationship alive? What would make you feel great? And when you guys drill down, you're like, I just want a woman. And most of the time, a woman to make it equal to, and sometimes a bit more effort than they're making.
Yeah.
Because a lot of guys make the mistake is women want the guy to chase, of course, and win them over.
Yes.
But a guy who stays in the chasing role, he's constantly supplicating, constantly chasing, trying to win affections. She's going to lose attraction because he's not playing a leader role. We all want equality, but she still needs to know, her evolutionary wiring still needs to know when the shit hits the fan or I'm pregnant and I can't work anymore. Is this guy the provider or protector? Those traditional roles are still there. Yeah. And a lot of guys are baitering themselves to being this
beta cocks.
supplicating.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's true.
Continue. Sorry, I could not.
We pronounce it beta, and I'm betering myself
beta.
a lot.
I said beta.
No,
Alpha, beta.
It was a beta joke. Fuck.
But you just ruined Sean's
Sorry,
goal.
Sean.
Like,
Sorry, Sean. Continue. I apologize.
No,
That was me.
Sorry, Sean.
It's good.
Sean's like, why the fuck did I join?
Yeah, right. He was about to hammer home with a really important point, and I think both myself and him are like, I don't know where we were with that one, but we'll be all right.
Yeah,
So-
where were we? Where did that
Well,
start?
you were talking about betas and the fact that we need women to still be following and men in a chaser, like being the chased role, so that they can provide that women are
I'm
still
not saying they
seeking.
have to play that role, but she needs to know he is that role.
Yeah.
I agree
He
with
still
that
can be the
completely.
provider, protector.
Yeah.
Well, there's still equality. You still play the roles, but there will be a time where
You need to look to them.
And that's why a lot of relationships fell apart in lockdown. Is that people who are forced to kind of live together a lot longer than they realized, and all of a sudden they're like, "Who's this guy on his gay station?" I know it's not politically correct, but
it is. You're not wrong.
and it's like
I was on an Xbox One. Thank you very much.
She
but,
needs to see that in adversity or lockdown, some people stepped up, some people survived, some people thrived. Did you make the best of it? You know what? We're in lockdown. I'm going to learn a new language. I'm going to learn the piano. I'm going to work on my book.
Learn how to
You're
bake.
doing something. A woman needs to see a man taking action. And too many men are happy because they feel they don't have to be this dominant leading man, that they take a more subservient role.
Well,
and that loses attraction. It was interesting because I was on the flight to New York for a boot camp, and there was a girl next to me, and I got bumped to first class. I dressed nice and smart,
As you do.
I wish I could be bumped to fucking first class.
And
you got to dress like Shaun does, man.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is, I don't even know who it was, so I can't mention names in terms of the guy. But she was dating. She'd been in a relationship for 2 years with a premier footballer from Manchester United.
Okay.
Now I know nothing about football or soccer. What do you guys call it?
Yeah.
Do you call it soccer or do you call it
We
football?
call it soccer here, but you should call it football if you're
If
actually
you're a
cultured.
soccer fan,
Okay.
you call it football, yes.
Okay, so she was literally in a relationship, and she was telling me, because I was saying there was this cinema that I love. It's called Every Man, and it's like literally a luxury cinema. And she says, "Oh yeah, when we used to go there, he used to book out all 7 screens for him and their friends." That was the life she was accustomed to. But she said, and before she told me, I says, and then you started losing attraction. She says, "How do you know?" I says, "But you can tell me how you lost it." And she's basically, she thought, like, you'd think these pro athletes would train 7-8 hours a day. Sometimes they're only training 2-3 hours a day. And she'd come home from work and she's driven and motivated herself. And that's what he was attracted to. She was a bit more than the average girl. And she'd see him sitting there on his PlayStation, just doing nothing. And slowly but surely, even though this guy has a level of wealth that most people can't comprehend.
Yeah, and even a level of drive.
His lack of drive and motivation and to do and be more.
Yeah.
She was just losing attraction levels. And she was on a plane and she was off on her own.
And that's one thing I took for granted because, like you said, COVID popped my last relationship and things like that. Is that I guess the comfort zones in relationship dynamics, you can fall into these really bad habits.
Complacency. It becomes easy when you become comfortable.
Yeah, I guess the question I'm going to ask you, Shaun, do you see them as bad habits, or do you see it as just like who the person is? And it's not like
it's not that they're bad habits, or you just froze in there. What was the last part of that? I think you said.
Is it not that it's a bad habit, more that it's just that person?
complacency, and if that's what we're referring to, just settling, and so it's not
more
it's
what they do
habit.
when they've kind of settled into their. I wouldn't say complacent, like with the PlayStation stuff, for example.
Comfortability.
Like if they game or things like that, like, it's a hobby, right? So they're gonna do it.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But women, when they pair bond with a guy, women typically, a guy doesn't give a shit if she's wealthy, she's successful, she's a boss babe. He does not give a shit.
True.
Yep.
That is why you never see a homeless girl on the street that's beautiful. Right? Okay. So, but you go to Venice Beach. There are men there that put all of us to shame. Their bodies, they have their little don't ask for money, give me protein bars. And they're the most body beautiful men ever. They don't get selected. They're still on the streets. So men typically don't care about the wealth dynamic or success or motivation or drive. And so because they don't, what they need to know is that they themselves can do a little bit more. She needs to know, if she pair bonds with him, if I get into bed with James, so to speak, what will my life look like? Women do not like to downgrade their lifestyles. They want to know, if I'm with James, will my lifestyle at least equal what it is now and be better? So the guy who's just getting by, she got into there and she's like, is that it? Are we not going anywhere? So a lot of it is about the dreams and ambition, because a guy typically who doesn't have the dreams, drive, and ambition, he's also lacking things like disciplines. So when some shit does go wrong, one of the psychology components of evolutionary wiring is he adaptable? If shit hits the fan, is he the guy that would just, would he drop out of the plane, land on his feet? Is he, a successful risk taker, they call it? Is he industrious? And he cannot demonstrate that while sitting on his gay station. He can't do anything while he's just going through his life, going to the football match, drinking with his friends. He's demonstrating none of these qualities. So it creates this unconscious in her nervous system, like, is he the right guy?
I'm going to say yes to that entirely too.
That concept of individuation is we're not meant to just be ourselves as men. We're supposed to be constantly adapting and growing, adapting to the environment, being better. And a woman, when they see a man is on his drive, she'll invest more energy into winning him over than the guy she gets who just exists.
Yep. Can I speak as a woman with that? Yes, I could not agree more with that. And that is exactly part of why my first relationship didn't work out. Also multiple other reasons for that. But the predominant thing, at least with which it started to fall apart, was because my partner was constantly playing Xbox and PlayStation.
My man.
No, 24/7, less time going out. And it was also a big and significant thing that he had no drive. So the fact that because he had less income than me, that was never an issue. And I never care about that in terms of, I guess, the importance of it. But the issue that I had was that he had no motivation. There was no drive for bigger goals and dreams. And so exactly what you just said is such a huge and relevant thing, because the next partner that I then dated, abusive as fuck, but knew exactly where he wanted to be, knew exactly where he was and how to get there. And that plan felt secure. Him as a person, less so, but that in itself was something that I definitely appreciated and admired. And so ever since then, in partnerships or even in people that I've dated, it's always about drive and passion being one of the core things. I don't really care how you're getting there, just that. Yeah.
But see how
and one of the reasons behind that is a little insight into one of the reasons why a guy with drive and ambition versus a guy just playing on the Xbox is that a woman, when a guy's on his upward trajectory in life, he's on his growth curve. If he's like a top Premiership footballer and she joins in the package, she didn't bring any value to the table when he reached there. She could be dismissed or exchanged for anything else. And that's the same as the guy who's at the bottom level, just playing on his Xbox. How can she add value to his life? And then he gets bored and chooses another woman. But a woman who is of value to the man as he's on his growth curve, and she can support and encourage him, has a lot more value in the relationship than the woman just existing with him. And how can she flourish to support him if he has no fucking dreams and goals?
Yeah. So true. So true.
That's the thing. And that lack of that expectation from females, and and validly so, you know, because everyone should get what they want out of life and out of their relationships.
Yeah.
But because it's their perception, you know, so often if I've been at a point where I'm struggling in my life, sometimes I've been with someone who's looked and gone, whoa, hang on a minute, is this guy going to be a provider, whatever else? And it's like, no, this is actually your opportunity to stand up and support me and show me that, you know, behind every man, there's supposed to be an even greater woman, you know? And it's like, if you're just sitting here going, what's in it for me? Is this guy going to be able to provide for me? Then it's almost fine to grey rock, play your gay station.
Yeah, I agree with that as well, because it shouldn't
until
be...
she leaves. It's like the face tattoo theory. It's like you're going to weed out the fucking...
It needs to be reciprocal, and you want to also be supporting and encouraging while also being supported. Like,
that's
I think
the thing,
that's
though, right? Like the
supporting
high value
while being supported. That's a nice one, yeah.
The high value.
And there is the thing is that's a lot of guys who, you know, there's a guy on a group today. We have all these groups of like men, some of them like in different regions, and some have 4,000, some of them have 800. And this guy's a dating coach in another town. He's like, I never pay for dates. I never pay for dates before sex. And I'm assuming you get ugly women. And he took a lot of offense to it. And I was deliberately poking him. And he says, yeah, but you don't need to. I says, look, if your life is so consumed about not having to worry about who pays for the date.
Yeah, that's
a scarcity mindset.
I'll come back to that. Yeah. But then by default, you're telling me that you can't afford to support a family. I looked at his Instagram. You don't go on nice holidays. Never mind take your partner plus 2 children times 4 cost on a holiday. You can't afford that.
Yep.
You're not ready to be a man. You're not ready to be what a man is supposed to be, a father. You're not ready for that. And so, I mean, by the way, I have a rule. The only time I'm not paying or I'm splitting my date is if she turns up and she's radically different from what her online profile looked like. then we're splitting, you know?
So I had once the girl really insisted. She was like, no, I'll fucking pay my own way. I'm going to pay for the cocktails. And I was like, okay, all right. So
but I mean, so I've had it before, and the guy said, what do you turn out? She doesn't look anything like, just be a gentleman. Just, I always believe, you know, whether you're speaking to the taxi driver, you can have a conversation with anybody and find something of interest, you know, but
I
let them know.
I want to ask you, because we're
splitting if somebody turned up radically different from their cartoon filters.
I think we should go 2/3 and 1. I think we should go 60-40 on that, actually, to be honest. Yeah.
But I do want to ask Shaun, because we do ask most people that come on. So when it does come to the first date, right? How do you feel about the dance? Would you prefer that the partner does the bill dance? No, not the actual literal dance, Shaun, wait for me. So, you know, when the check comes, right? And there's absolutely no inclination that it's almost expected that you will pay because you're in her presence and therefore you will pay.
Yeah. It's you just got to accept it for what it is.
Yeah.
And here's an interesting one, because it was interesting touring Europe, and I came back I was basically living in Los Angeles, West Hollywood, and I came back to see my parents in the UK, I do a training camp, and literally 2 days later, all locked down. I couldn't get on because I'm not an American citizen. I couldn't get back on the flights. I'm like, I'm in the UK, like fuck. Yeah. So I managed to sneak onto the ferry and get and I thought, right, let me, you know, all the Airbnbs, anything that was like $500 a night, they would just take for anything just because they had no business. So I could stay in these luxury places all around Europe. And I got to see a lot of different cultures. And so I'm always looking for hey, would you know, like, let me give you half. No, I'll take care of it. I'm looking for effort. And that effort better feel genuine.
Thank you.
That's great.
No,
it's not just me.
No.
If the effort is not there, I'm not going to be a lot of guys, they get reactional. It's no big deal. You know, if you're struggling and it becomes a big deal in your mind, there's a bigger deal universally with your lifestyle.
Yeah. Agreed.
If it's a big deal that you
don't
have
take
to pay
someone
for
on
a
a
date.
fucking date if you have to do that as well. You should come in.
I mean, let's say like who should pay the person who asked them? Well, it's like who should approach? Well, the women did the makeup, they did the beauty, the guy approaches. It's kind of accepted. So the guy always asks for the date, the way to be asked. So it's a bad argument to say whoever asks should pay. But I'm looking for the signals that there's effort. You know?
Yes.
Maybe that's why I pay so much then, because I always ask dudes on dates.
Yeah,
and maybe that makes sense.
That's for me too. Is I think for the indicator that I was looking for is
the
this
genuine?
Gonna be, am I a meal ticket? because of what I do for work or because of my situation.
But it does underpin other issues that if you're
Mm.
struggling to pay for the date, what are you going to be like in the future? What was interesting though, I remember being in Belarus. I'd literally hit 18 countries now, and I had Ukraine and Russia on my list of 20 countries in lockdown, and I couldn't get in. So I thought, okay, I'll book a flight via Turkey and get to Belarus. And I went on a date with this girl in Belarus, and it was a beautiful place. I mean, we had black caviar. It tastes like shit, to be honest. But I never had it before. And I remember when the bill came that he put her at her side. She literally never thought. She just slid it across to me.
Yeah,
and that was like,
a bit icky.
Ooh. Yeah. That was and I mentioned, and she was shocked because I mentioned in a playful ways what I thought was playful, and she was not comfortable with that. And what I was fascinated about the more Eastern European women, they're a lot more traditional, and they're looking genuinely to get into a relationship for marriage and have kids, but there's still that expectation of the man to pay. So I'll accept that when there is that traditional role thing. Is what
exactly
cultural norms.
The environment.
We want equality. We want this. We want that.
Thank
you. I want you to pay for everything.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
And I'll accept that.
That's where this has come
I'm
from.
out here being a sugar mama, so I ain't got any fucking commentary on this shit.
But it is. I think for me, it's a big indicator of, like Shaun said, it is that thing of you're hearing the big thing of like equal rights, and obviously yes, but when it does come to these things where they can get the advantage,
but it's important to actually play your card, be
we had
equal.
An entire episode on we called it the dinner dancer.
Yeah.
And it was a fucking delightful evening that we went out. It was a really nice restaurant, whatever. And my move to make things a little bit more comfortable for everyone is I go to the toilet and I pay for the bill or whatever.
I do that too.
But then I wait to see as we're leaving if they'll mention like what's going on with the money or something like that. So it's not even a dance anymore. It's just, we haven't paid yet, like to kind of see where they're at and where their head's kind of thinking like, is this a meal ticket? Like what's going on?
Oh, it's an escape and run.
And we just walked straight out. We went to the car.
Yeah, she didn't even question it.
Whatever,
like,
didn't even register that there was an exchange for the money for food. And honestly,
see, that's my modus operandi. And I'll go to the bathroom, just have to like dessert or something, and they're like, "Oh shit, is he disappearing?" And while I'm away, I'll pay for the bill.
Correct.
So it's not over the table. I just pay for it. It's taken care of. When I come back, what for me, but again, that's my preference, and everybody has their own preference. It doesn't make it right or wrong.
No,
what I'm looking for is at the end. I'm looking at the end of her appreciation to say, I appreciate that.
Yeah, correct.
That's all I'm looking for.
It's probably a nice way to put it.
Appreciation.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's a little trigger word even for women as well. I'd say, thank you, because the guy hears it a lot of before. Just say the words, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate you taking care
it's
of that.
It's a recognition of it.
Yeah. And that's really all a guy wants. He's happy. Look at the Jordan Peterson interviews and all the memes and the videos. These guys are happy to go to work. They just want a little bit of appreciation.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a valid thing as well. It's so simple as well to be able to recognize and appreciate things. And I think we tend to
and that's the transition.
Forget how simple it is as well as a transaction, right? When we, whether, man, woman, they, them, individual, it does not matter. I have to be so inclusive. I'm so sorry. I've said that like three times. But like,
that's why we have you here.
You missed the
cover.
I'm a PC human. But like, I think that appreciation goes beyond a long way because we take it for granted so simply. Like we assume, especially when you do have a developed partnership as well, it becomes even more so easier to take something for granted because it's assumed or an expectation. It's like, actually, this person is still doing something for you because commitment and partnership is still an effort. It is still an act of, continuing to commit every day. And so that does deserve appreciation. And, there's a lot of work in, and I'm sure you probably take from some of this with your psych stuff as well, with Gottman's theories as well, where bids for attention, like I just looked at this bird, and when a partner actually acknowledges it, just the acknowledgement, not even having to like go beyond an acknowledgement, like, oh yeah, that's a cool bird. Like, I'm glad that you like birds. I'm not really into birds, but that's nice. Even just something like that.
Is that why you do that?
Because
you do that to me.
Yes, because it's
stop doing that.
No, because it's appreciate. No.
But she doesn't care.
No. I do care. It's about appreciating what your partners or your friends appreciate, even if you don't appreciate it, because they have extended a bid for connection with you, and that is something that most people, like a partner, might either ignore it completely. Might go, "Why the fuck are you talking about birds?" And the minute that you do that, that then causes a rupture without even realizing, and it increases over time.
And that's why the point is like the appreciation is hugely important, but even more important is expressing that to the person.
Yes, and not even just
being able to
verbally.
recognize, because sometimes people will be a bit guilty or a bit reduced or whatever, and they're like, oh, you got the bill, I can't afford it, fuck it, I'll just let it slide. But if they actually acknowledge and recognize that, you know, that somebody's showing up and he's like, yes, you know, I got that, maybe I get the next one.
Yeah, I like that, James. Showing up
Me too.
is the thing. And it's
showing
literally
up
you
is such a
showing
good
up.
trait.
Like, I don't like football. And if she was into
hate
football, I
football
probably
too.
wouldn't be interested anyway. However, there's going to be things that you don't want to be both into the same things.
Yeah,
But
you'd hate
you
each other
showing up
otherwise.
and go to the football match and appreciating her energy and say, you know what, not my thing, but I did enjoy the energy and the vibe. And
You get to see
knowing that
her in
you
her
made the effort
element.
and you put a fucking smile on the face. And
Exactly,
as James said,
yes.
you showed up. You
Yeah.
showed up. That's more important than actually you liking the same things.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I on my second or third date, if I think, you know what, I could see this going somewhere, it's like almost a pre-qualifier. Like, you know, I'm going to the Lake District on the weekend. It's not going to be in a big mountain, but, you know, I'm going to go for a hike. You up for coming with me? And I like it when she's not really. If she tells me up front, like, look, it's not me. I'm never going to invite her again. I probably won't see her again.
Yeah.
But if she's willing to make the effort, I'll take my time. And a lot of people, when they do things, they do it at the extreme level. Like maybe they take the girl to the gym or the guy at the gym and they go at their extreme pace. You have to tone it down. You don't want to piss them off or put them off.
You've got to read the room, right?
And what I get to do is when she's making the efforts, you know, I know you're out of breath, but I'm so impressed the way you came up that mountain and, you know,
you've literally got a gentle parent that fucking chicks.
And that's like dog training. It's like dog training.
It's literally conditioning. You are literally
dog
conditioning.
training for men or women. The
It's
next
true.
book, dog training for men or women.
Pavlov is so fucking spot on though. It's literally behavioral training. The minute that you do that, and if you compliment them closer and closer, you shape behavior really well over time. And then instantly they're behaving the exact way that you want. It's fucked up science, but that's exactly how people do that with partners.
Here's the thing,
Pavlov's
right?
boy.
What's scary is men typically do it the other way. Is like, for instance, you got a new puppy and you come home, and you're excited about this puppy,
so
and it's shit all over the kitchen floor.
Amazing. They do
They
that.
don't go hitting it on everything else. But what you don't do is go and give it some treats for shitting on your floor. Men make a lot of mistakes that, for instance, they don't set the boundaries of their expectations because they're always trying to adapt because they don't have choice in the relationship.
Correct.
So they accept bad behavior and then they mention it very meekly and like, oh, you made me feel bad. And all of a sudden the next minute he's giving her treats and buying her a Louis Vuitton bag or taking her out to dinner and rewarding the bad behavior. So as a man, we have to lead. We have to say, let's go do this. Let's go do that. And if she makes efforts, you're happy to keep leading, not all the time, but you're happy to keep performing.
Yeah.
And then you can reward good behavior. That encourages her, you know, rather than rewarding them for being pissy or emotional at the wrong time. You want her to make efforts. And then that way you get to reward them. And that encourages her in the future to keep making those efforts in the relationship. The problem is most guys, in a nutshell here, they
never set
encourage the bad
boundaries.
behavior by rewarding bad behavior. Or more importantly, before they give it the treat, not telling the dog to sit.
Can you please give me
Not
an
asking for
example of
anything in
that
return.
without
They
dog
just keep
talk?
giving because they think they have to keep demonstrating value.
Metaphor instead.
No. Would you be able to put a more literal example of that?
boundaries
Like
and things
a
like that.
practical example is probably a better word of phrasing that, because I understand the metaphor. I understand Pavlovian conditioning. I want to know how you would apply that in the context of
Like a
dating. Yeah, just so I've got more perspective.
So dating, let's say
What's
she's,
bad behavior by default?
So, bad behavior?
Yes.
Or good behavior?
No. What's
Bad
considered
behavior.
bad behavior? Because you're talking about how men will
What would
sometimes
you not
encourage
want to
the bad
reward
behavior.
someone
Yes,
for?
precisely.
Because, you know, guys just dispense rewards regardless.
so
I am
what
not
would you
being
not want?
rewarded
Okay,
that frequently, so I would like to know what's happening.
It's a little. There's an
about it.
interesting one, for instance, about guys talking about flaky. You know,
Yep.
they talk about going out, and then he mentioned he tops up on a Thursday saying, "Hey, looking forward to Friday night. Oh, I've already planned some stuff with my friends."
Oh, so like all the chicks on this fucking podcast.
So he accepts it, and you're like, okay, does he learn that? Okay, if I say something, I'm going to be overreactive, but to not say anything, there's a fine balance, and he accepts being let down at last minute. And by the way, I always tell a lot of guys, don't worry that if that first date doesn't happen. A lot of women, if they're not sure about your attraction value and they're not sure, maybe you're a little bit of, especially strong-minded men, strong-driven men, they can also be quite volatile at the same time.
Yes.
That same personality trait. I think you said
they're
that before,
passionate.
Lil, was
It's
one
very
of your
easy.
exes. So she can test. You know, women will, I've got to do my hair. I've got to go out and sort this out. She wants to know that it's no big deal to you. Yeah. But you don't want to encourage that type of behavior. So there's a balance there.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it is like, you know, like if you get into the rut of just accepting that's just going to keep flaking on you and you keep accepting it, hey, no problem. Okay. I'm really busy. I got a load of other things on. You've got to move on. But that's very hard to do.
It is.
So the best reward or response to bad behavior is to have other options. Now we're talking about the dating phase, not the relationship phase at the moment.
Yeah.
So, but you can't do any of this naturally without being volatile if you don't have any other options. If she's the only one,
right.
she's your one-itis, and you know, and because if you were together in the dating phase and it's going really well, you don't need loads of other options, but she wouldn't be treating you like that anyway. It's normally in that initial stages. But if you just let that slide and she's not sure about you, you're going to keep paying the price.
Yeah, okay. That's a really good example. Thank you for providing that. That helped me.
But also, it's little things. It's like testing how they are. For instance, girl comes around, it might be their first night, and you're like, you know, I'll go fix us some drinks. Here's the lighter. Go put the candles on. Give them something to do. Just watch how they respond. And that works both ways, you know? Are they part of this and working with you? Or they're like, why are you giving me something to do? And if they react funnily, you know, or a bit off, then you know that's their natural nervous system to be like that. And that's going to cause problems in the future. You know, they're expecting everything done for them.
That's a good first date identification as well, though. I wouldn't have considered something like that. It's a really good idea.
Yeah. That's such a flush out. That can flush out red flags so well, and in hindsight, that would have flushed out so many red flags in the past.
See,
another little one. If your partner's going away for a weekend, let's say they're going to York or London. Hey, when you go to London, you know, I used to have a little postcard from London, you know, with the London bus on there. Would you grab me one of those postcards? It's not much of a request, right?
Yeah.
But you know, when your partner's away, give them something to do because it anchors in their minds, still thinking about you. And then they go and do that little tiny thing that wasn't much. And they bring it back. And I really appreciate that. And they appreciate being appreciated. But if they weren't willing to do that because their friends were distracting them or they had a lot more attention, that also, as James says, gives you a few more warning flags.
That's actually a really good point. Yeah.
It's huge.
I'm telling you guys, this shit is good.
This guy's a genius.
I will say you've impressed me. I had some hesitancies, and I'm
thank you very much.
So
do you think I would not
I said I'd come in honestly. So
yeah, you know, you've done well. I'm very proud of you. I'm very proud of you.
That's the thing is like I love Jungian personality type and everything else.
Jungian stuff is my fucking shit. Anima, animus, fucking individuation. Sorry, you're speaking my love language there. Yes.
But the thing is, I was into that, and I got trainer instructor of the year for 3 years in a row before I got into the game, and that was the problem. I was Mr. Techie. Whatever I was into, Mr. Ex-Army physical training instructor, I would bring that conversation into my social environment. And women would always say to me, oh, you're very intense though. You're like, do you ever just relax? And like, I just didn't know how to vibe socially. It just wasn't my thing.
You could be autistic.
And I had to learn a lot of new traits in the game. And I always say to guys is like, when you're learning the game, I've put a slide up there, Peter, is that when you understand the stages, not every guy needs to learn everything new about the dating game. We all have natural strengths and gifts at different stages. Just find the area that you're weakest in and then fill in the blanks.
Mine's woo, apparently.
And there's certain things that are a massive turn off. Like just hearing you say that just reminded me, like often when I meet someone like, what do you do? And I'm like, I'm a consultant. And they're like, oh, wow. You know, all cool people are consultants. What type of consultant? Like, oh, a technical consultant. And the word technical, you know, just literally, and it's just
I don't say it anymore.
Yeah. And it's like, don't focus on,
Here's
they may be your strengths.
James, the next time somebody asks you what you do, they don't really give a fuck about what you do. What they're thinking is, okay, this is a clue to what this guy's life is like.
Do you know what I do?
So
do you know what I am?
Don't waste it by saying, I'm a lawyer, I'm a teacher, I'm a this, I'm a that. Have something more that portrays your personality and who you are beyond giving a title of what you do.
And this is the deep, deep truth. I'm an artist and a co-creator in experience and in life and in podcasts, in music, in absolutely everything. So I'm an artist and also a bullshit artist, quite obviously.
You are very much a fucking bullshit artist. To call you out on it.
That's another Australianism if you're not familiar with
and
that.
That's one of the we actually practice that. Like, for instance, the guys will come along and say, I'm an artist, but that tells them nothing. It's like, so it's like the Christmas Carol, Ghost of Christmas, Past, Present, and Future. So, this is my title, this is my trade, but what I'm doing, what my passions are this, and where I'm going with that is XXX.
Yeah,
that's my go-to line.
So rather than kind of one-word response to everything, you need to learn how to, and also you need to practice the delivery. That's the biggest challenge for guys. Most guys don't meet women, not because of looks, not because of money, not because of wealth. It's that initially on meeting, they are boring as fuck.
So fucking true.
Did you know that was my...
They don't practice the art of speaking in front of social groups.
That was
because they're always swiping left, swiping right, or reaching for the lube.
True.
That was my reaching for the lube. Brilliant. That was actually my pickup. I didn't know about it till later because I was like blind drunk at the time, but I'd been vibing with this group of girls at the Lame Duck of all places.
It's a magic place.
And this girl, and I was like, why the fuck did we end up going home? How did this end up happening? And she's like, oh, I just knew you were a bit different. And I was like, how did you know that I was different to all the other guys? I was like, how did you know I was different to all the other guys? She's like, I could just tell. She's like, you were blind drunk and you just kept asking me, you're like, how are you creative? And I'm like, I'm not creative. And I'm like, no, but how did you used to be creative? How are you going to reconnect with that?
Beautiful.
And it wasn't even a pickup line.
No, you're genuinely curious.
Do you know what that was though, James? There's actually there's a great theory behind that. There's a concept called qualification. Is the very fact of rather than you trying to ask rapport-seeking questions, oh wow, what do you do? It's just so you can reward them immediately. Again, throwing the dog the treats. You're challenging them, and that concept. Men need to be more challenging and qualifying. Like you have choice. Like if you're Brad Pitt and you're in a bar and you're hot. Is there more to you than meet the eye? What are you proud of? What are you? Can you cook? Not because you're trying to wipe her up, but you're being teasing and playful. And and the very fact that she starts making efforts, it trips her unconscious to say, hey, you know what? I'm making some effort to win this guy over. Her unconscious is I must be attracted. And that's the one thing guys can have is that you may not look attractive to her, but with the right questions, the right responses, you can create attraction where it didn't exist.
Yeah. And that's almost what it was. I was like, I was blind drunk. I was definitely not presenting my best self. But she literally, and we went back, we had to, we hung out that night and then I left. And then.
Did you say you banged?
I didn't say that. I said we hung out.
Oh, because you looked away sheepishly like you banged.
I said we went back. I was going to say we had a one-night stand, but then I realized that we've seen each other since then.
Yeah. But multiple night stands.
We went back. We banged.
Thank you.
We had a fucking great experience.
We bumped ugly.
Such a great.
Bumped ugly. So they bumped
there was no sleep
at
all, and then we came back, and then I came to a daytime pod the following day. So it was and then the connection dropped, and then months later, she made contact with me again, and I was like, why did that happen? And she said, because, I'd seen all these other guys, I dated other guys, and no one had, I just kept coming back to this thing where there was this other person who was not doing the same moves as everyone was doing, and I just thought you were more interesting. And I was like, well, I'm not.
Actually, on that point, James, if we can throw that slide up, I just want to make a reference point to the visual on what James is saying here.
Sorry to have hijacked that as well. I could see you come up. Yeah.
Approach, attraction, connection, seduction, and relationship.
This is not like a system that I created. These are like the natural courtship stages. So here's the thing: is a lot of guys, what they try to do is they go out. The player will try and build a bit of attraction, but he doesn't want to do the connection time. He doesn't want to go on the dates because he knows if he does that, there's a higher expectation. He's leading towards a relationship. He wants to jump straight to seduction, sexual tension. And the problem with that, he gets the same night lay, but we all know the best sex is when somebody else is feeling comfortable with us over a period of time and you get repeat sex. So the guy got the same night lay, he missed the connection phase because maybe he's a bit of a cheapskate. Maybe he lives in a shithole. He doesn't want to take the girl home and she's not going to see him again. or go on multiple dates where he's got to pay. So he wants to get to seduction as fast as possible. In fact, the guy's evolutionary wiring is the ability to get to sex with the least amount of resistance or effort.
Connection's where it's at.
So,
Fucking
however,
connection.
a lot of guys who do that, they keep getting the same night lay, okay? But they're not going to see her again. So now they've got to put more time and effort to going out on the prowl, on the win, on the pull to find another girl. The challenge with that is the more time you're chasing the tail, the less you're spending on building the quality of life that would make you attractive man in the first place.
Okay.
So
quality
that's
sex.
the danger with the guy who wants to miss out that, 1 or 2 date connection phase. The benefit of what James had there, he actually did the approach. He built attraction because what he's doing is qualifying her, make efforts to win him over. He's acting like a guy with choice would do. He's,
I've got fucking
Acting
heaps of
like
choice,
you're a
man.
guy with
Heaps of
choice.
choice.
How
Just
will
so
you
you know,
create
you're not a man
showing
with choice.
something
You're
you
acting like
created?
one.
Yeah.
When did he do that? So she's qualifying herself, building attraction. He's built a great connection. Now maybe she goes, okay, but James isn't relationship material. He's not the perfect guy. But because the sexual attention's there, she's able to keep coming back in the loop.
Oh, I'm understanding now why I don't have a relationship.
Yeah.
But so every time the thing is with this model is every time you miss one piece out, you pay the price.
Yeah.
Like a lot of guys will run around, they'll just approach trying to elicit, like visualize Joey. Joey, how you doing? He's like, they're throwing out sexual clues straight away.
Yeah.
And those guys, they're going to get low-hanging fruit.
You could conceptualize this as a building, where those lower stages, like a Maslow's pyramid, and you could say there's approach, which is very broad and easy. There's attraction, which takes it a little more. There's connection, which is hard to cultivate. The biggest mistake
men don't do. They don't make the approach, so they get nothing, no results.
Yeah, we'll see you later. You're not on a fucking pyramid. But the point is that they're broad things, and even approach being blacked out. For me, I'm like, there is no approach. I'm not approaching a person. I'm just seeing people. I'm not even approaching them.
Well, that's what I like to call engaging.
Yeah.
Engaging.
We call that engaging. And I like to teach that in the program because if you tell a guy go approach, especially some of the professional, the bigger the ego, the more they are successful in other environments. Those guys, they're harder to teach sometimes than the young guys that's go and approach. He's got nothing to lose, just, fear of rejection, desensitize, approach. But the guy who's had a lot of success, those guys resist the approach. So what I take with those guys is I'll get them to be more engaging in everyday life. Be making comments, be making social comments, strike up conversations on the coffee line, because it's much easier to go from a base of being in a conversational state to engaging with a woman walking out of the elevator or coming out of the coffee shop, whereas you've been cold all week and you go out and all of a sudden you have this big effort to go start and initiate a conversation cold. That's like jumping in the gym, going for the biggest bench press, and you're not.
You got to wake up to it.
And it's
whereas a lot of guys make the mistake. They go to the gym. They do the warm-up sets, the 1 or 2, and they fail, and they go fucking home.
Exactly.
That's what most guys are doing. They're like, try a little bit, and they don't bother sticking through to go through the pain. And one of the other key with this model is the seduction bit. A lot of guys will do the approach, they'll do the opening, they'll get introduced to social groups, they'll go on the dates, they'll build a great connection. But the one thing they're not very good at is building sexual tension. And that lack of sexual tension, that lack of spark on the dates, she likes him, she's attracted to him, and he's a nice guy. That is the guy who ends up in the friend zone.
Thinking about having sex right now.
So
again,
most guys have just got to figure which they're weaker in and go, okay, I clearly am not good at building the sexual tension. Let me just bolt a few things to create some sex talk, be a bit more flirtatious,
Stop fucking with that.
or build the emotional connection.
So what?
And if they fill in the blanks, then the game gets so much easier for them.
So what he was basically telling you was it's like once you identify the gaps in the areas, because their audio died midway through.
Keep speaking.
He should be okay now. Was that once you figured out where you've obviously identified that you're very proficient at the attraction part, you do it that subconsciously almost. But it's
I
almost
just do it by being in a room, I think.
No, but that's a lot of guys have nothing. So you've got the building blocks of things that are there already, and obviously because you do quite well anyway without any of this sort of stuff laid on top, it's about identifying kind of the sort of the gaps and then figuring out where to kind of bolster that space and then it will give you the complete package. You'll almost be unstoppable.
Yeah.
Which is, I think you will.
There really are only about 4 or 5 core mistakes, and when you can remove them, it just gets so much easier. The other big mistake is a lot of guys, they're like the vibe stimulus. They're conversational. Those guys are a bit more extroverted and more intuitive, so they're happy to have the vibe and the tension, but they don't lead it anywhere. You know, I had one of our young trainees up the other week for his assessment. I'm like, she liked you, but you didn't even exchange for Instagram. Where's the mini close?
Remember when I met you and I fucking did that shit and I was like, you need to go get her phone number when you're at the lame duck. And I was like,
What's the
fucking
point
get
having
her
all
phone
that
number.
stimulus to go nowhere?
Yeah.
He says, yeah, but we'll see each other again. Or the problem with stimulus is that it's like telling a few jokes. If you look at a comedian on stage, they love him for the moment. And I love going to comedy clubs wherever I travel. And you always watch the comedian. He'll go to the bar at the back of the comedy club so that when there's the break, he gets to meet all these girls and he can't do nothing with them. Because he was only a stimulus guy creating tension, playfulness, but there's no attraction value uploaded. He's not letting them know those core evolutionary attraction switches. Is he a leader of men? You know, is he industrious? Is he hardworking? Has he got dreams and goals? Is he ambitious? Is he going somewhere? He doesn't upload any of that. So they enjoyed the momentary stimulus, but it dissipates so fast. And that's why a lot of dates flake for the vibe guy, you know, the social guy. They just flake. So he's always looking for the low-hanging fruit of the girls who want to fuck on the first date.
And that's not the kind of girl you want to be dating. Well, not saying that you're not the kind of girl that people want to be dating. That was the worst time to chime in.
No, but I just like
possible.
to fuck people on the first date.
But look,
So sorry, I'm so unprofessional now.
No, you're fine. You're fine. We can tell you're drunk.
You're doing good. You're doing good. I'd like to ask, you know, because I'd read years ago, I'd seen this book in the bookstore, and I think it was called The Game, and I picked up the book.
Game.
Yeah, and I read this book.
Sean's never heard of it ever. Not once.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Never.
Anyway, so I read the book, and it was by this guy called, I think his name was Mystery or Style.
Neil
his
Strauss.
name is Neil Strauss. His name was Style. And he talks about this whole thing he'd been talking
Why
about.
I lived with him, so yes.
Oh, you lived with him? No way. Anyway, so I read the thing, and like he tells the whole story, and he doesn't completely, in my mind, he didn't completely sell the idea. There was a lot of points of value in what he was saying, but he wasn't selling it and going, yeah, this is great and this is the way. Although he did go on to make another book that told you how to follow the way.
Rules of the game, yes.
The rules of the game,
Yes.
yeah. And it was, again, the same thing about converting that and doing those things, which by that stage I realized, I was like, fuck, I'm doing these things, you know, I just follow my own path. But at that time, I felt that the term, you know, pickup artistry, I don't even know if it had a stigma attached, but I was like, it's got this feeling attached to it, that the idea of people strategizing
it's very
and being
primitive.
Yeah, and so you've obviously got a lot
It's
of
almost
clients.
like when a young man at the age of 18 to 25-year-olds just running around trying to get laid. It's a natural part of a man's evolution. But what happened in his scenario, Neil Strauss, he's this nerdy, bad posture, semi-balding guy who was a freelance reporter working for Rolling Stones magazine. So he was always given these high-value people to meet, but he had no social skills. He was definitely not good at the dating. And basically what happens in the story is they ask him, they found out there's this underground society, secret society of pickup artists talking online on forums, sharing ideas of how to meet and attract women. And they ask him basically to go and infiltrate this world. So he does, and he kind of basically encourages this guy who's like a street illusionist, a guy working with tables doing magic,
Eric.
who's very theoretically. And basically, they encourage him to have a boot camp, and they go, and basically the journey starts to unfold how he himself, while he's busy writing the book, is himself being transformed. They make him shave his head. They make him do a star makeover. I'll give you an example. This is not Neil Strauss, but I will give you an example of a guy. This is the type of makeover. So you can imagine this guy. If I can just share the screen there with you, Peter. You imagine this guy.
He's on it.
Great.
Imagine a guy. This is not Neil Strauss, by the way. He's just a client, and is a doctor, and terrible posture, terrible fashion, terrible grooming. It's what we call impact value: fashion, grooming, physique, style, and that's what they did with this guy called Neil Strauss. In fact, he took the alias Style was his nickname in the show of how they made him over. So this is the before. Let me share the next slide. And this is the after. And this is like in 24 hours. But imagine what you could do if you had a guy for, you know, a long weekend, a boot camp, etc. This is in 24 hours. It doesn't change the person inside, but it means his impact value is now a lot more visual and more impactful.
Him.
That's a bit racist. Did they put boot polish on his
she
face?
gets her boobs done, she puts her makeup on, short skirt, she'll create more sexual attention. A man doesn't create that, but what it does is buy him a bit of time to be more accepting, so he gets into conversation, then can upload his value later.
Yep.
So, you know, there's just a world apart. What I mean, Lil, looking at that, what do you see when you look at those two different people?
Well, I can't see his pot belly for one, and he actually looks like he probably
Cares.
Yeah, like he cares about his appearance, that he actually wants to make an effort.
They're the two big determining factors, right? Is
By
that
comparison.
on the left, yeah, there's little to no kind of effort.
I look more like the left version most of the time, so there's no judgment there, but I totally can respect on the right side.
But in terms of attraction...
But if you're going out, yes, I'm obviously more attracted to someone who's dressed as a more suave, more sophisticated
The dude
individual.
on the left might as well be fucking Jeff Bezos, you know, like he's going to provide for the rest of your life. He's going to, you'll be in Dubai every day of your life, but it's going to be no fun.
The guy could have all the value in the world.
He looks like a dad.
Most men present their outer shell badly. I was kind of guilty of that myself before I got into the game. It was very invisible. In my style, I was Mr. Comfort dresser, and it's not that I realize dressing smartly as a man doesn't get you anywhere near what a woman's looks will for her, but what it does is give you presence. It stops you what we call the impact value threshold. If you're too low value on the guy on the left, the woman doesn't even want to talk to you.
Yeah.
True.
You're rejected before you get the chance to say, you know, I actually got big dreams and goals. I'm going places.
That's nice for you.
Pardon?
It would be like, that's nice for you. Okay, off you go.
Yeah.
But the guy on the right, you know, in the suit and like he's presenting himself, he's now leaking the truth that there is a level of success.
Yeah.
That's why I hate these memes or these videos online, which is a gold digger because she's reacting to the car. Well, it's so loaded and reversed because he looks like a scruffy homeless shit in one. But now he's presenting more information. Oh, this guy is more successful. There is something about this guy.
Well,
it's not that she's attracted to the car. It's the fact she's reacting. There is more to this guy in terms of success value.
Did you want to know
it's his fault for looking like a scruffy shit in the first place.
There's a fun fact around that where people actually, like the literature actually suggests that individuals who have more fancy and materialistic kind of like cars, houses, etc., they're actually less wealthy. So a lot of women might be more after that, sure, in the materialistic sense, because they're like, yes, if we're going back to that evolutionary theory. But for the most part, men who do that actually earn less, and they're trying to show it off to look more appealing to women, when in fact it's usually the men who are dressing more like your friend here.
Your Jeff Bezos type, like you said.
Exactly.
But then how does she distinguish between a homeless guy and Jeff Bezos? She can't, so she just ignores them.
Reading a newspaper probably would do the favor.
Yes,
but most people wouldn't do that.
The other thing,
but yes, I understand.
Standing on the street that looks like fucking Skid Row in front of a sign that says subliminally says affordable behind does not add social value. Having your fat guts coming out over your fucking belt.
Correct.
You know, whereas the guy who's in like a cool apartment with a cool suit looks somewhat almost unattainable and a bit hard to grasp.
Anyone who's
most men just need a little bit of that front end impact value. And a lot of guys, no, I need to go to the gym. You could be, you know, again, look at the guys in Venice Beach. They're like amazing bodies. And
there's certainly a lot of women who have that requirement, though, of someone to be gymming or to look masculine or whatever. And I almost don't gym. I've started gymming because I play bass and I want to be able to hold up for a fucking set, you know. But I'm not doing it to get pussy, because I'm like, if that's what you need to get with a guy, then you're meeting us on guy terms here, which is the shallowest of terms and of appearance, you know. And even though it might say, you know, you're strong and whatever else, and even though I might be like, yeah, I like big boobs, because it's again the same evolutionary drivers that are driving it.
It's basic standards. It's basic standards. It's like when women started going from wearing heels to then platforms, she pushes the bar up. Nobody wants to be the shorty, so all the other women have got to walk around on these crazy stilts. You know, they're all have to
Don't do
wear
that 'cause
platforms
they have
because
poor
they're
joint
competing with other women.
motility.
Whereas nowadays, if a lot of men are going to the gym and just generally looking more healthy, some are a little bit over the top, and then you get the one guy who doesn't make any effort, he then stands out as either there's a danger if you don't have the time to go to the gym, you don't have the disciplines to go to the gym, you're not socially aware of the benefits of going to the gym. Again, if she looks beautiful and works on her beauty, it'll help her get laid. A man going to the gym doesn't help him get laid. It's just one of many little things that is expected of his disciplines. So it's like we always work on a guy's grooming, for instance. He looked very pasty and white and a bit drawn out, like that guy did. And then it's like, well, okay, what are you displaying? You know, the fact that you never travel, you don't have the money to travel. You're too stressed at work to travel, to have time with her. It leaks the truth, bad health indicators. So you've got to keep the fashion, the grooming, the physique, present the best presentation of yourself. But even with all of that, that's still not going to give you game unless you're willing to engage. You've got to strike that conversation. You've got to practice it. You know, you've got to go through that approach anxiety, and you've got to be willing to learn how to approach groups and social dynamics, even if you're not social yourself. And it's a skill, but it's painful, but it can be learned. It can be learned.
Absolutely.
And that's where I guess that you guys would come in hand, though, because I guess, look, we've stolen you for an hour and 35 at this point.
Is it?
So, yeah, it has flown.
Gone very fast.
It is. Nice conversation.
So you had 2 hours of material and it's still quality.
If, obviously, because there's so many more facets to what you can do as a guy out there trying to kind of get what you think, I guess, where you should be and where you want to be. Where would the audience find you if they wanted to? They've just listened to the podcast. I want to get started.
Yeah, just Discovery 3SR on Instagram or Discovery 3SR on Facebook. Maybe you can put it in the chat. And you know what I would say is, one thing I wanted to say is that a lot of guys listening, if you're naturally social, they'll go, you don't need that. Just go and be yourself. But that's fine. If you grew up in a social environment, a social group of people, and you're always engaging, you don't need that. But for a guy, maybe I've got a guy, super wealthy, drives, got a McLaren, got a Lamborghini, everything. But he's just come out of a 7-year relationship. He's 28 years old. He has no idea how to talk to women.
He has negative game at that point.
Negative game. And a lot of guys are in that place. They're coming out of relationships and having to start again. And, you know, if she's beautiful, for instance, I met a girl, German model, actually, in Miami. And she was sitting there. And the reason I approached her in the daytime, we call it day game, is because I'd literally seen guys making comments to her walking by. She just kind of dismissed them. They didn't know how to approach. And my guys are looking across like, but are you good? So I went in there and got into a conversation. She became a good friend. But what was interesting speaking to her is the fact that she says, you know, I'm here for a couple of weeks on work. You know, I don't have anybody else with me. She says, I know as a woman, I can sit here, dress up in a nice cafe, and I'll get to meet interesting people. Men will approach her. Whereas a guy, you see, if he's traveling, nobody's going to approach a guy on his own.
That's right.
He needs to learn how to do the work. And if you learn how to do the basics of approach, meet, attract, connect, build a bit of sexual tension, seduction, it'll change your life. And the great thing is, once you learn the skills, they're for life. Some people learn them naturally and don't need to learn them. But if for a guy who's maybe coming out of a relationship, he's not very sociable, or he works really hard on his business, then you just got to build in those components that you're not very good at. And it's so worth it, because the one thing I do know is that having those skills will change your life, but also not having those skills. You know, they always talk about things that, like Tony Robbins, Dan Pena, whoever you want to listen to, they always talk about components men need, like sales skills, communication skills, understanding wealth. You can get through life not having one of those and survive and do quite well. But if a man can't find, meet, and attract a mate, he's going to be miserable till the day he fucking dies. And that miserableness, you know, if I call it miserableness, that will affect every other area of his life, his work, his business, his drive, his motivation, being on his own. It affects everything else. And it doesn't go away. It just gets worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
So I believe every man has to learn again and start getting out there and learning how to meet and attract women in a way that's not creepy, you know?
Absolutely.
You're doing everyone a favor.
Part B, my question before I feel like you're going to wrap it up.
Yes.
Is that I asked that thing about the stigma of pickup artistry, but I also read there was a word that was used in the document that I read, the document that you wrote beforehand, and it said social artistry. And that really opened my eyes because I was like, this is something that to me had a slight stigma attached to it. And it seemed like tactical maneuvering and all this type of thing. And I've seen it in terms of social artistry. And I was like, wow, that's actually what it is. It's like what you're saying. It's learning how to engage people.
James, like you said, everybody does the pickup components. And it's like style, you do the pickup, you learn to do approach. But some of them, it's like, you're playing the gay station, Xbox, and you get upgraded. And all of a sudden, you've got a few little traits and skills that nobody else has, and you're beating everything. And it's very addictive. And a lot of guys, especially if they don't have anything else going on in their lives, they learn these basic pickup skills. They get stuck there. And they're still running around 5-6 years later, running up, approaching, saying some quirky things to get the girl in the bed. She realizes there's not really much more to him than what he was saying. And then he has to start all over again. So every man goes through that pickup phase, like women learning to put makeup on. Everybody goes through that phase.
Yeah.
But they need to progress to becoming more of the social artist where they can now, okay, now I can hold court with a group of men and women, hold court with the groups, engage with the whole group. But most guys don't want to do that because it takes more skill.
And the last thing, I'm just looking at all these Masters of the Universe fucking figurines here, and I'm just thinking like the guy who masters the PlayStation, it's got 0 social value. Imagine if that guy picked up a fucking guitar or something instead, you know, or learned to do some skill that actually is a limitless skill that has obvious social value.
Game is a limitless skill. You actually have to think of challenges. You need to be able to battle things. You need to have good, fast processing speed to account for different challenges. I think that there's a lot of skill within that. I think it's just an undervalued one
100%.
because of the way that
you
it's
use it in
perceived.
every aspect of your life, business, social. That's the thing, is it doesn't have to be, you know, it doesn't have to be picking up a girl. It's making a awkward situation less awkward. Someone says something a bit weird and you've got the toolkit to be able to get into the scenario.
Especially because most of the people who play with you are weirdos, just like you.
Yeah.
It's
so
easy.
you can, you know, it pays dividends.
I
It's not
agree.
just an investment in your dating life, it's an investment in your life in general.
Yeah.
And guitars are not the only thing that make people want to fuck you, by the way. Just FYI.
Yeah, and there's bass and there's many other instruments.
No, like I
Any
honestly,
fucking
I don't think
skill.
I have. No, I have fucked a few musicians, but like
paint,
no.
you could sing, you could
bringing
do
it back
poetry,
around,
it doesn't
'cause we have
matter.
to let
Let's
Shaun
tie it
go.
up together because I am also really tired.
He's
It's
been
like 12:30.
He's been so nice.
Oh, yeah, it's late
and
for you guys, right?
Yeah,
No, it's
I'm a
fine.
grandma as
had a
well.
great
I
comment.
got kids
Oh,
to
yeah,
get back
1
into.
a.m. Shit, is that really 1 a.m. where you are?
Almost.
Fuck,
almost.
yeah, true. Yeah,
But,
12:48.
it's
it
worth
is.
it for this.
10 to 4 for me.
Can
10
I
to
ask?
4.
Can I ask the last?
No,
like-
you've already
go.
asked your
No, no.
Shut the fuck up! This is wrapping up. I literally had
Okay,
one
fine,
question.
go on.
It had one part, but it's become 3 parts.
That's fine.
And I didn't intend to ask this part. But if someone engages, if someone wants to go in your coaching courses,
Yes.
what's involved? Do they go? They join some sort of online group,
That's a really good question.
you join the group. You pay some amount of money, which you may or may not want to disclose, and then they're in for
Yeah,
weeks,
we have 4-day boot camps. We have one coming up, I think, in September in Sydney.
That's right. Little birdie told
so
me
we're
that
gonna be
he's going to be in
coming there.
Australia.
You're becoming
And then we have one in Chicago, one in London. And it's like a 4-day program. It's like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
One in
and it's
London, 2
every
weeks away.
aspect of the social skills, the basic pickup skills, understanding the components that how to present yourself as being successful. But also a lot of guys don't have their dreams and goals locked down. So we spend a lot of time on where are you going?
Good.
And a
That's
lot of guys
important.
have to really take a checkup on the neck up and redefine their lifestyles, not just to impress the woman, but to impress themselves.
You need to
be
sustain it as
excited
well.
about who they are.
It needs to be
Okay.
sustainable.
So, and
so
then
it's great.
we do the whole 4 days workshop talking about, and then we take them live on the Friday and Saturday night. We make them go make some approaches.
Did you go out?
Correct them.
Yeah, dope. When are you going to be in Sydney?
September.
September. I haven't defined the date yet, so
Okay.
We're
got
still fleshing that
a
out.
load of
Yeah.
guys will be asking for it. So when we get a few bookings, then we'll make the date.
I've
we'll
sent
make
in
the
a
date.
follow request for you, so make sure.
Yeah,
you
that's
keep
right.
us
We'll take Shaun
informed.
out for a drink in Sydney. I'll take you to Sydney and we'll catch up and we'll
that's
have a
what
laugh.
I'm saying. We'll come and
Yeah.
meet you. This has
Definitely.
it's been great.
No, 100%. But yeah,
I
look,
appreciate
thank you so
it.
much, mate. I do really genuinely
Yeah,
appreciate
I've
it.
thrown my Instagram handle on there. That's always a
We got you.
Beautiful.
log in to open in separate window. Oh God. No.
Yeah,
That's
thank
all
you
right.
so
I'll put
much,
it up
Shaun.
for
It's
you.
been a fucking sick
put it up for you.
potty,
It's
and
fine.
it's been really, really cool to speak to someone else in a similar-ish field and to get
Nice, yeah.
insights on that end as well. I like to always hear this kind of stuff because, yeah, sexology is like my special interest.
Yeah,
so
I
it's
sent
good.
you guys the slides on the personality, and
I'm
it's
going
like
to
I used
be
to teach
watching
before the
it.
game. But what's
Reading it.
fascinating is when they identify the personalities, and you can see different personalities challenges in the dating field. That's fascinating.
Nooch, can you say that to me?
I've got it all. Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Look, Lil's a sexologist. I'm just an
I'm
amateur.
not a sexologist.
I'm a sexographer at best.
I don't use the official term because it's actually not what I'm.
But look, I'll go ahead and sign us off.
Sextraordinary is actually right.
And again,
extraordinary as well.
Your Instagram again, Shaun, was
it's the Discovery 3SR 3-second rule.
That'll be up on the screen for everyone to jump on.
Thank you so much, Shaun.
Last question. What the fuck is
no more questions?
What's the 3-second rule? Come on, man. It's his fucking brand.
Dude,
last question.
I want to fucking go to bed.
That like quiet guy coming out of his box now. He's had a few drinks.
He's never a quiet guy.
It's not even about the drinks.
He's trying to close me now.
The thing was that I had. No, I'm not trying to close you. The thing was that I had 2 questions, and Nooch always tries to wrap it up and speed it along. And the whole time I'm like, what does the 3-second rule mean? That's my last question.
You could ask that.
That is your final fucking
question. The BBC
question.
did a whole 3-hour interview on me on that one question. But the 3-second rule it means a lot of things. But in our company, it was all about if you don't approach, if you look at the girl and you don't approach within the first 3 seconds, maybe 3.5 seconds or 4 seconds, who gives a fuck? But the point is, all that happens is she, as intuitive as you think you are, she's 20 times more intuitive.
Yeah, she's feeling you fucking looking at her.
Every minute, every second that goes by afterwards, she sees you now as the creepy, scary guy.
Fucking
as opposed to guy.
So true.
So your goal is to, even if you've got nothing to say, the worst thing to say is hi, the best thing to say is hi, obey the 3-second rule, get over there, introduce yourself.
Actually, I remembered Neil Strauss said that. But
all that does is, James, the worst thing is if you don't obey the 3-second rule, is you start beating yourself up later, and that reaffirms to you, I'm just not good with women. And eventually, you just stop going out and stop approaching. So, you've got to obey the 3-second rule.
Okay.
And the saying behind that is, "He who hesitates masturbates." So you see and you go, you see and you go, you see and you go, and that's kind of the entire motto of the whole org.
I knew it. I just wanted to hear it from the genius himself.
Yeah, no, awesome. All right, we're gonna sign off now.
All right. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you for putting up with these two, Shaun.
Pleasure, James. Pleasure, Peter.
Fuck, it's the 3 of us. We're a fucking trio. And we're all hard to put up with.
No, look, I'll have all your socials up there and whatnot. And we'll definitely catch up in Sydney. Thank you so much for coming on the pod. And I'm going to hit the outro now. So if you want to jump off the...
It's been a pleasure. It's been emotional.
You too. Thanks for coming.
Bye, guys.
Joining us.
Thanks so much, Shaun.
Sleep well. Get your grandma sleep.
Thank you.
Thanks, mate. We'll talk
soon.
soon.
To go out and pick up. I'm not really in a good game.
What are you waiting for? The car's cold. Get the fuck out of here. What fucking warming up? Get out of here.
You're the man. Get out of here. Thanks for listening to Irrelevant Platitudes.